Hi everyone, thanks again for joining us for our next feature in our Vitae Sports YouTube channel. Today we're joined by none other than England Cricket Managing Director Ashley Giles. We're going to chat to Ash about his playing career, hopefully have some good anecdotes for you, and it's something hopefully we might be able to do a couple of parts of Ash, including his coaching career after that as well. So hope you enjoy. Ash, great to see you. How are you doing?
I'm all right, mate. Thanks. Yeah, it's a little bit strange for all of us, I guess, at the moment, but managing, very busy, spending a lot of time doing this, talking down cameras on laptops. But most important thing is that everyone keeping safe, really. And so far, we've managed to keep our lot safe and sound, so that's good news.
So things are going as well as they could in the circumstances.
Yeah. I think. There's a whole bigger picture out there, isn't there, for everyone to see, and a lot of people are having a pretty tough time of it, whether that be from a health point of view or from a business and work point of view. So the quicker we can get through this, the safer we can get through this, the better. But personally, very, very busy still, and looking at ways where we can get the season on and up and running. But obviously, the most important thing to start off with is that we do it safely. Yeah.
Well, on a lighter note, mates, we're going to have a chat to you about your playing career, if you can remember back that far. So we'll crack on and hopefully get some good anecdotes from you. We'll go back to the start pretty much. A little trip down memory lane when you were a sprightly left-arm paceman. You started out at Ripley Cricket Club, and tell us a bit about how you got into cricket, bowling pace, and then sort of reverted to spin.
Yeah, so that really is where my education in cricket began, on Ripley Green in Surrey, and it was a real family affair. So my granddad's previously played, my uncles, my cousins, my dad, my brother. And actually, my earliest memories were being on the green all summer, it seemed. I couldn't have been. I must have gone to school at some point. But certainly every weekend, all weekend, and quite old-fashioned cricket, or village cricket, in that, the mums and sisters would do the teas. We'd spend long nights up there. Someone played the piano. Great fun, great environment to grow up, and so cricket wasn't a hardship, wasn't something I don't think any kid sets out to do for a living. I just loved it. So from the moment I could run around, I was bowling, hitting, catching, doing everything I can. There's a ghost in your house there.
Yeah, I know. You popped up on a couple of videos. I haven't BBC News ones. I'll avoid swearing, hopefully.
Yeah, so they're still very much some of my fondest and best memories of cricket. Are that idyllic scene of Village Green in the summer, warm, beautiful cricket that is played in the right nature, and everyone has a pint afterwards and a sing-along. And I've played in some very different cricket from that as well since, but really great times growing up. And I've sort of made my debut for the men there when I was about 9 years old. Was playing pretty consistently from 11, and then about then, I remember my dad coming home one day, and my dad, like a lot of dads, sat on loads of committees and did his bit with cricket. And he came home and he said, "Well, I've met this coach, and he's got a session tomorrow night with a few other lads your age." And he said, "Come down." And I was really nervous because I'd just done all my stuff quite on a relaxed, very social basis. Really, I thought I was okay, but you just don't know. And that was the first proper coaching I'd had. And it was the guy called Brian Ruby down in Guildford Leisure Centre. And Brian was attached to Guildford Cricket Club and he previously worked with the Bicknell brothers, who are slightly older than me.
Yeah.
And Guildford was a strong club in the Surrey Championship, Division 1, which was the highest standard in the county. And that then took me to another level, because I had some proper coaching. Brian's school was a tough one. He used to shout and swear at us, and
that's where you got
all the
that
names
from,
under
then.
the sun. But it was good for me, and I seemed to accelerate quite quickly in my development. Interestingly, on the same course, I met Ian Ward, now Sky Sports, and so we grew up together right through that system, playing cricket together, and so great times. But through those sessions, through Brian, I got a trial for Surrey under-11s, and that sort of got me into that system. And at the same time, when I started playing in the Colts section at Guildford, and when the time was right, and I really had to make that jump from village cricket into better club cricket, I naturally moved on to Guildford at about 14 years old, and I'd sort of outgrown village cricket. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was always trying to test myself and raise the bar, and the next step up was to go and play for Guildford. And at the time, I was I'm not sure pace is probably the right term to use, but I was certainly a left-arm swing bowler. And actually, at 12, 13, probably was sharpish. Ian Ward and I used to open the bowling together for Surrey. And we bowled a couple of teams out we bowled Berkshire out for 9, bowled Wirral out for 17 one game. Wardy was quick. Probably he's not grown since that point. That was, he was the same height at 12 as he is now, but fond memories again at playing in those age group sides, and again going to Guildford. Yeah.
And so you got your chance at Surrey. When would you have made the turnaround to becoming a spin bowler?
I was trying to work this out recently, actually, that I probably was around 15 when I first started having some back trouble. And I think nowadays, given what we do, we'd probably say, workload problem, stress fracture, probably was. Didn't have the same sort of diagnosis back then. I think we just called it growing pains. But I bowled a hell of a lot. I mean, I was, again, my dad's brilliant because he keeps everything. I was looking through some of those records recently, and I played something like 80 games, one 2 summers in a row or something.
Yeah.
Which, when you think about it, that's almost every other day, with school in there somewhere as well, or sometimes two games on a day if you play for the Colts section in the morning and then play a lunchtime game. So I bowled too much, definitely. So I had back trouble, and for a while I stopped bowling, and I went off into the third team at Guildford, because at the time, even at 14, 15, I'd started playing second team and first team. And I went off to the third team. They said, well, just practice your batting, see how you go. And then one day in the nets, I bowled a couple of these little left arm floaty things, because it didn't really hurt my back, just off a couple of paces, and landed them all right. And it was good practice for people. And the following weekend, I think we were in a bit of trouble in the dirt, and the captain turned to me and said, you just chuck up a few of those spinners you've got. And I went, yeah, all right. And I got 6 wickets. And then the next week I got 5 wickets. So I had 21 wickets in 4 weeks, bowling these filthy left armers, which I think some people would say I continued to bowl from what they say.
No comment.
And then they moved me up to the second team to do that, to bat and to bowl some of these spinners. And by the time I was fit again, I eventually went back into the first team, and there was a period where I was opening the bowling and then turning straight to spin. So the captain was saying, well, okay, enough of that now. Bowl some spin for us. So I certainly get my team money's worth. A couple of games I bowled almost the whole end, or the whole innings at one end. And throughout this period, Surrey had been sort of grooming me as a left-arm seamer. I was a good prospect. I played through the age groups, was still playing through the age groups, played regional cricket, played a year above my age group for Surrey. And then, they called me one day and said, we don't need a bowl spin anymore. We think it's going to affect your seam. And so for a while I did. But I wasn't having as much impact as a seam bowler. I wasn't really gaining a lot of pace. I still bowl with control, could still swing it. And there was within two years down the line, perhaps, there was 2 or 3 years, it was a case of, look, I had to make a decision. I enjoy bowling spin. The team needs me to bowl spin. And I bowled it, and I think it'd be fair to say Surrey didn't take it very well. I continued to play age group for them, but at the end of that summer, when I was 18, I was called in to the Oval to be told that there wouldn't be a place for me at Surrey, which was really gutting, actually. I'd just been Young Cricketer of the Year.
Yeah,
had a great couple of seasons for the under-19s, and was high up in the bowling averages in the Surrey County Championship. Started to get some runs as well because I was getting an opportunity, and it just took my feet away, really. I'd never imagined playing for anyone else.
Was that partly because you sort of defied them and gone to bowling spin, do you think, Ash?
Yeah, I certainly think that there was something in that, and whether it had affected my pace, my left arm seamers, maybe, but I certainly don't think. Well, I certainly would be sitting here now if I continued to bowl left arm seamers. And then but it was as this kid who'd only ever dreamed of playing for Surrey, wearing that brown cap and whatever, and playing at the Oval. It was pretty devastating, and it was actually my dad and my brother who said to me, "Look, there's plenty of other counties out there. Ride around and write a letter asking for trials." And I did that. I had some pretty good stats behind me from age group stuff, which helped. I had a few trials. Some counties I didn't get a reply from. Many I did. And one of them was Warwickshire. And actually, again, my dad's kept all this, and I found the original letters that came back. One of them was actually from Bob Warmer, wrote me a letter he was in Cape Town for the winter, as he used to go. Wrote me a personal letter and said, I'm handing this over to second team coach, Neil Aberley. He'll be in touch. But really a nice touch and nice to look back on now, as Bob was such an important influencer in my career. So I went up to Edgbaston and had a trial. Went pretty well. Was incredibly nervous. Didn't really recognise anyone because, I'd only ever really been focused on Surrey cricket or England cricket. My dad was completely awestruck because apparently there, and I obviously know them very well now, but Dennis Amiss was there and MJK Smith was there.
Yeah.
So 2 legends of the game that my dad knew very well. End of the session, I thought, that's it. And actually the second team coach, Neil Aberley, came up and said, we'd like you to come back. So we arranged a date to come back a couple of weeks later. And we broke down on the way up the M40. My dad's car broke down about Oxford. It was absolutely, I was gutted, but I think my dad was more distraught than me. And Warwickshire were brilliant. Said, look, don't worry, we'll see you, come up next week, get it sorted, get home safe. And so we did. And at the same time, actually, it's worth saying I was going to Lord's every week. I joined the School of Merit at Lord's, which was like the winter programme.
Yeah. And
I was just in process of being offered a place on the MCC ground staff, which was great. It was another opportunity for me. But the second visit, went and bowled in the nets, had a terrible bat. Must have got out 4 or 5 times, but that's probably never changed either. And then I went back to bowl again, and I got a tap on the shoulder from Neil Aberley, and he said, "Oh, you know, let's go and have a chat." And I thought, "Oh, this is it. This is the thanks but no thanks." Got called into an office, and in the office was Dennis Amos, Andy Lloyd, the then captain, MJK, with Neil Aberley, and Neil said, "I'll go and get your dad as well." So Dad came in, and they offered me a 2-year contract, and that was an amazing feeling as an 18-year-old kid who, well, from pretty early on, and I say you grow up playing because you love it and you enjoy it, but I'd probably said from about the age of 11, 12 that I wanted to play for England, wanted to play cricket for a living, and so this was the beginning of it. You know, I probably didn't understand that was the very lowest rung of the ladder at that point that you could possibly be on, but it was a start, and I left there with a beaming smile, and we made our way back to Ripley, and everyone was over the moon. So great memory there.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, and then it took a while, obviously, as it does with most young spinners, to sort of break through into the Warwickshire setup. How did that go? What were your sort of first memories of who were you up against then? Who would be the spin bowlers at the time?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few things really. I mean, I was still learning my trade really as a spinner. In relative terms, I hadn't been bowling spin that long. You know, when a lot of kids start out bowling spin from 10 or 11, but I'd only been bowling even half full time, if you like, for 3 years.
Yeah.
So I was still learning my trade. I think, as I'll touch on with later in my career, almost at every key moment in my career, it's almost taken me time to find my feet and to settle in an environment. You know, some people go in, and we see it today, some players go in and they just fly and just get on with it, take like a duck to water. But different stages in my career, I've sort of had a taste and gone back, and sort of the taste has been good, that, okay, I know what this is about now. And that happened to me so I joined in 92 at Warwickshire. In 93, I played my first 2 first-class games, and probably realised I wasn't quite ready. Warwickshire realised I wasn't quite ready, and I fell back. And they signed Richard Davis from Kent. He joined the Bears, and Dickie played throughout the 94 season, which was a fantastic treble-winning season for Warwickshire, Brian Lara's year. And he also played half of 95, and through that, I was developing my game. I thought I was getting better. Started to get a bit frustrated with playing second-team cricket. Neil Smith was the other spinner in the team, who was a really good all-round spinner across all forms. And then, so 95, I really started to get a bit frustrated with everything. I felt like, right, I'm ready now. I've spent 2 years realising what I've got to do, or what I had to do. And almost out of the blue, actually, I got an opportunity. Went down to Cardiff to play and did okay. Didn't feel out of my depth, felt like I had offered good control, and I was comfortable with the environment. And that was it, really. I sort of then was in and didn't really let go. And whilst I wasn't ripping it up, although, in that first year, I think I got about 20 wickets in 8 games, including a 5 against Worcester, which was great. But in that team, because it was such a strong team, I actually, and you learn this as a coach afterwards, you have time to find your feet around good players. It's always difficult putting fresh young players into a side that's struggling, or a side that doesn't have experience, because you're basically going, well, go on, lads, sink or swim. And that's not really that fair. Sometimes you just can't help it. But in our case, as young players, the likes of me, Dougie Brown, Graham Welsh, we were, Wasim Khan, we were put into teams that had really great players, like Gladstone Small, Alan Donald, Tim Munton, Roger Toos, Dermot Reeve, Penny, Piper, list goes on. Guys,
which of those players would have been the most helpful to you during that time, Ash?
All of them in different ways, really. So Dougie and I have always had a really strong relationship. We lived together for years. We roomed together for years. From a senior player point of view, Tim Munton was also someone a lot of us young players always used to turn to for advice. Alan Donald's never been any different. He's just been a superstar, and as was Gladstone Small. Paul Smith was a senior player in that team who was a really senior player, but used to treat us very well as young players. And that wasn't always the way back then, because there was still this element of senior player, old county pro, protecting their position, looking forward to a benefit year. And if you're a young player, they made it quite hard work for you. Paul Smith didn't do that. He was great. But Dermot Reeve was captain of that team, and a brilliant captain, the best I think I've played under. And I've played under some good captains. Just the feeling of confidence he gave you and he instilled in a team, and that anything was possible and you can try anything as long as you practice it. And that was really strong in Dermot, that, let's think out of the box, practice out of the box. And as long as you practice it and you can do it in a game. If that means going in first ball and reversing, fine. If you practiced it, it's a safer shot as defending, and that was the thinking.
I mean, that'd been quite unusual for the time, I guess.
It was, and it's frustrating because we come back to talking about the same things now. It's just like cycles. That playing your options, manipulating the field, taking on a percentage shot. That stuff was what Warwickshire were doing through the mid-90s, and that was led by a brilliant captain, some fantastic players who were given freedom, but also a brilliant coach in Bob Woolmer, who is undoubtedly one of the best two coaches I've worked with from a technical standpoint, certainly. So, going from an 18-year-old lanky left-arm seamer at Surrey who disappointed and not, had no opportunity, to someone who going into that Warwickshire environment, which was just a brilliant. It was just a brilliant environment to learn cricket around all these people, and a really successful time. So you just ate it up. And I'm still, influenced now. I think we're always learning, but I was very influenced as a player, but I was also influenced when I went into coaching and managing by those experiences. So great times. In '95, we won the championship, and to be part of that team on that last day was great. And we also won the NatWest. I played in quarter-final, semi-final, didn't play in the final, but was obviously at Lord's. So 2 great years, treble, double, back-to-back years. Just, sort of became I don't think anyone takes it for granted, but, when you then play so long and you realise and you coach how hard it is to win trophies, and some people never win trophies, you realise how special those years were. Yeah,
excellent. And then obviously Warwickshire had a massive bearing on your thinking going into coaching afterwards. But in terms of moving on from your own career, the England call-up came quite quick then. So you'd sort of gone from quite small beginnings to all of a sudden breaking into the England team. And how did that feel? You're just saying that you said sometimes it takes you a little while to adjust.
Yeah.
So it must have been difficult.
My game matured quite quickly through that period. The other bit I was doing in those winters from 92 to 95 was going to South Africa. And that was a really steep learning curve for me as well, going to play in a different environment as a young man who not really spent a lot of time away from home, in an environment where I was expected to lead, to coach, to play once a week and have success. First year I had an absolute nightmare. I got incredibly well looked after, but I had a nightmare. And somehow they invited me back second year, and I blitzed it. I had a great year and then did 4 years. And that really helped me mature. And then, I've talked about 95, 96 then, after having a taster in 95. In 96 was my real takeoff year. I got 64 odd first class wickets, played some one day cricket, got about 500 runs as well. And it suddenly, at the end of that year, I'm on A tour, and you realise how close you are then, and you try to explain to players sometimes, once you're in that environment, you're not that far away from playing at that highest level, and you've got to try and be prepared. So I had a good A tour of Australia with the A team, which was great. And some really good names on that tour, like likes of Vaughan, Gallion, Dean Headley, Mark Butcher, Peter Such, Warren Hegg, Glenn Chappell, Adam Hollyoake. A strong team. And then into 97, probably didn't have as good a start from a county perspective, but was picked in the one-day squad at the start of the year. And it was an unusual way. I wouldn't really recommend it now in my current role of way to let people know how they've been selected for England. But I received a parcel in the post at Edgbaston, and it was an England blazer. Had no other notification. I opened this box, and the lads were around me. They went, "It's a pretty good idea. You're going to get picked this week." And so I did. On the Friday, I got the call from David Graveney, who was then chairman of selectors, and was picked for the Texaco Trophy, as it was back then. Still played in whites for one-day internationals, and I played one game in that series. Played at the Oval, which we won. Don't think I got a wicket. And I went about 5 and over. Did all right. Did my job. Didn't play again. And again, it's that in and out bit, a bit of a taste. Maybe I wasn't quite ready. And then my next appearance for England was in Test cricket in '98. So I was selected in the third Test at Old Trafford. We were already 1-0 down against South Africa. Played in the third Test, which actually became the turning point of the series. A really flat wicket. They got a big score, and then we basically had to bat 2.5 days to try and save the game. And in the end, we did. I got 1 for 108, I think it was. I know it was. On my first bowl. Yeah. We certainly didn't pull any trees up again. But actually, I think it was the only wicket a spinner got in the series for England. So I played the one Test. I had that moment where you get the call one Sunday morning from the chairman of selectors, and you're picked for England in Test cricket, and rah rah rah, fantastic. And then about 10 days later, I got the other call that was, you're not playing next week. So, but again, repeating myself, it was a real eye opener. The intensity of the environment, the quality of the skills you need, but as much as anything, the quality of mind you need to survive in that environment. And,
so it probably served you pretty well, did it, for when you then become a regular player?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, so I went back to Warwickshire. I think probably I suffered for a little while, and we see it nowadays when players go in and out of the environment. It's a big hit when you fall out of that England environment. It's a big hit on your confidence, on who you are really, because you 1 minute you're in this stadium full of people and there's cameras everywhere. Next minute you're back playing in front of 100 people wherever, and that is a real hit on your self-esteem as well, as much as anything. So I went back 99. I think it was a pretty quiet year, did okay. But 2000 was the year when Bob Warmer came back to Edgbaston. He'd left, had been coaching with South Africa. And then he came back, and again, it probably was sort of stars aligning a little bit as well, because during that time, I think that taste of England, I've always been professional, but I was still probably living the life of a young player, living it up a bit too much. And about that time, 98, 99, I met Stina, my wife, and suddenly everything, we got married in 99. Everything becomes more serious, and there's more on it, more responsibility. She fell pregnant soon after, and suddenly, everything changes. And so 2000, there was this really focused me on someone who'd had a taste of Test cricket, international cricket, now had more responsibility and wanted to get back in. Bob Warmer coming back in, who brilliant coach, who I'd worked well with before. And again, 2000 just took off for me. I got 50 odd wickets in no time, got some runs, and then people started talking about me again. And whilst I didn't play that summer, I joined the squad at the Oval for the last Test match and was selected for the winter tours. At the same time, Bob had put me up at number 3 in one-day cricket, so I'd played in the sort of pinch hitter role in one-day cricket, got 100 in a 60-over game. So just more responsibility there as well. And so I was back in, if you like, and I got picked for the tour of Pakistan, which was a huge pressure. Myself and Ian Salisbury were the 2 spinners on that tour. But I was confident. I was a better cricketer than I was before, better equipped. And it was great.
Yeah. Okay, so then, like you say, you're a different player then, obviously, to the one who made his debut. You felt like you should be there.
Yeah. And again, you never know, do you? But again, if things had changed with England, so Duncan Fletcher had come in as coach. Yeah. Duncan Fletcher's the other one. I talked about 2 coaches earlier. The 2 best coaches I worked with are Duncan Fletcher and Bob Warmer. Nasser Hussain had taken over as captain. He was a tough captain and set a tough environment. I didn't mind that so much, actually, because the environment I came into in 98 felt a little bit like everyone. There was some really good people in that dressing room, but everyone was very focused on their own game and getting to the next game. It's in the days when we used to pick 30 people for a series, so you never knew whether you were coming or going. When Fletch came in and Nass came in and Lord Maclaurin took over as chairman of the ECB, everything became more professional. Central contracts were just on the horizon. Well, no, they just had the first year of central contracts, and it was about making England more important and more consistent as well. And so Nasser as captain was tough, but he treated everyone the same. So whether you're Alex Stewart or Darren Gough or me, and I appreciated that as a young player, and I would have run through a brick wall for him, and still would if he was my captain. I thought he was a really good captain. But that first tour was also great for me because although there was pressure as a young spinner going up against Pakistan, and they had Saqlain Mushtaq and Mushi in their conditions, I just bowled loads of overs, and I got a good start in the practices. The environment was fantastic. So in hotels, we'd have sort of the whole floor, and we'd always leave doors open, and people would just come in and out and watch films, and a really good atmosphere about the tour. I got off to a good start, a brilliant series, and I actually loved Pakistan as a tour, again from the camaraderie point of view, but just the experiences of the different culture, even things like we went up the Khyber Pass, which you just wouldn't imagine doing that nowadays, and that was a real privilege. We drove up the Khyber Pass and we went to one of the tribal leaders' home, and we ate, and it was entertainment, just fantastic, and went up to the guns that overlooked Afghanistan. Some really, really fond memories of that tour, and personally I had success as well. I got some wickets, got 16 wickets I think in the series, and we won on that final day in Karachi where it was almost dark. So we very much, the first 2 tests were, I think, what's the word Nasser always used to use, sort of turgid affairs, long drawn out, games that were draws. Last test looked like it was going that way, and then in the last sort of 4 sessions of the match, the game really speeded up, and we had a sniff, and we won. And great fun, having been through that on my first tour with this group of people, to win in Karachi on that night, famous win, and then get on a plane and go home, celebrate together was just great. And we followed that up with winning in Sri Lanka after Christmas. So that team, you know, in those 2 sets of conditions against those 2 teams at home, really good victories, and got me off to a start.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I mean, you obviously played for 2 successful captains in Nasser and Varney. You've proven yourself as an elite coach. The position you're in now, and it obviously would have been difficult, as I say, because of the success of those 2 guys. But do you kind of regret not having to go at captaincy? Or is it? I guess it probably wasn't in your thoughts back then. But looking back now, would it have been something you'd have liked to have done?
Yeah, and I guess, you know, I captained 4 games for Warwickshire one year when Michael Powell, who was the then club captain, I think was injured, and I was available at the start of the season. I wasn't on England duty, and really enjoyed that. And actually, I reckon I'm the only captain from first class cricket who's only captained 4 games but had all 4 possible results. We had win, lose, draw, tie in 4 games, so I really made it quite entertaining cricket. But yeah, and I think I probably thought, maybe I planned that when I finished playing for England, I perhaps hoped I would go back to Warwickshire and maybe take on a role like that. That didn't work out, as we know, but I suppose I took on a different role of leadership when I finished playing. But yeah, I enjoyed it, but a huge respect for the captains I played under. Very different. You know, you talk about Vaughan and Hussain to start off with. I mean, they very different styles, but their style suited the environment absolutely at the right time. Nasser was quite tough, and we needed it. We needed direction. When it came around to Vaughan, we actually needed to be released, and the likes of Flintoff and, you know, particularly flourished under the Vaughan freedom, but didn't make one better than the other. They were just right for their time. So yeah, I thought about it, but wasn't to be.
Yeah, fair enough. So you obviously you'd had these great times. Then you got to 2004, and things hadn't gone so well. You considered retirement, is that right?
Well, I'd played through. Obviously, 2001. I had an injury in my Achilles. Missed quite a bit of cricket. 2002 and 3, and I started to. I guess I started to have some issues around my confidence. I had some issues around, how I was performing, but how I was rated and talked about. I felt I was a bit of a punch bag at times for the press, but that was then. And by getting towards the end of 2003, beginning of 2004, I was really having some proper battles with myself. And again, it's talked about a lot nowadays, whether it was depression, don't know, but certainly it was tough. I spent a lot of time in my own room. I spent a lot of time in my own head, and getting and things not being joined up. So when I was with the team, I thought I should be spending time with my young family. When I was with my family, I thought I should be practicing, and the whole thing was just confused. I wasn't sleeping well. I was listening to too much. I was reading everything. And I was just on this downward spiral. And by early 2004, on the back of a okay-ish, not that I had to do much. We'd done well in the West Indies. We'd won in the West Indies. Hadn't had to bowl much. But felt like I really hadn't played a big part. I, came back to England, played the first test against New Zealand, and during that test match, went out for dinner with Stina and basically broke down. Just not sure I could do this anymore. Got to that stage. Which is pretty embarrassing in the middle of Pizza Express, to be fair. Not the one in Woking. So pretty dark times. and actually got through those first 2 tests just about. And then before the 3rd test, and I was really desperate, Steve Bull, who was our sports psychologist at the time, he turned up at Trent Bridge the day before the game, and I was last off the field, and I was pretty screwed up in my head. I'd been spending some time with Troy Cooler, the bowling coach. I was last to leave the dressing room, and Steve walked in, and he was going to go and see Duncan Fletcher. And he just said, "Are you all right?" And I went, "Actually, I'm not struggling." And he said, "Well, I'm around later if you fancy a coffee." And that coffee changed the direction of my next sort of 18 months, if you like. And we sat down. I probably poured my heart out to Bully, and it was good to clear my head. And we looked at strategies of just trying to make me focus on what was important, not listening to everyone, not reading everything, and concentrate on my game, my value to the team, etc. So we did that, and he said, "Well, what's a good method for you?" And I've always quite enjoyed writing. So he said, "Well, go and buy a book and write stuff down." I did that, and I literally from there, from a coffee to WH Smith's, back to the hotel, started writing straight away, and just was able to sort of make sense of stuff and clear my head. And almost overnight, the next day, I didn't pull up any trees, but I did my job. Overnight, that first day, whatever it was, 1 for 35 in 12 overs or something, but done my job. Next day, got up, got a couple of wickets, for 40 odd, done my job in the first innings, got a 40 odd not out with a bat. Oh, great, okay, I'm in the game. Second innings, and everything was. Suddenly I wasn't hearing what people were saying in the crowd, which I had been. Yeah. Your own supporters shouting at you for being crap. It's not a nice place to be. I was just focused on the game. Got 4 for second innings. Got 40 odd not out second innings to we put on about 70 odd for the 7th wicket. I think me and Graham Thorpe to win the game and win the series 3-0. And suddenly my whole headspace had changed. And that really then launched me into the rest of 2004, which was my best year in Test cricket. So from there, we went on and played some one-day internationals. But after the one-day internationals, we had the West Indies. First Test was at Lord's. Continuing this same process of writing down and making sure I was looking after my head more than or as much as my body. And I got man of the match at Lord's, which was a pretty good feat, actually, considering in the game, which I'm a bit embarrassed about. Michael Vaughan got 200s in the game. Rob Key got a 200, and we won quite comfortably. But I got 9 wickets and got myself on the board at Lord's, which I'm incredibly proud of. So that was fantastic. It was also my 100th wicket. I got Lara through the gate, knocked his middle pole out, him coming down the wicket, which is one of my favourites because he's such a great player. And it was also the Test match with the Mind the Windows Tina. Remember when Fred was shouting from?
Yeah, can't forget that.
Freddie Flintoff was shouting from slip, but he was winding Tino up and he had a big swing at one and said, "Mind the windows." And the next one he ran down a pitch and got stumped. But so that was great. And we went to Edgbaston. I got 9 wickets at Edgbaston, which was my home. Yeah. Got myself on the board there, which was great. And it just went on from there, really. And we ended up, at the same time, there was this development of the team. Suddenly I felt like I was back in it, and the team had already started going like that with a bowling attack coming together that consisted of Jones, Flintoff, Harmison, Hoggard, me doing my job. Some really good players at the top of the order: Strauss, Trescothick, Vaughan, at the time Bell, Thorpe. Talked about Key playing then. Really good team. Won 7 Test matches in a row that summer in 2004, which was great. And we just felt like we were just creating momentum for what was coming in the second year, which was the Ashes. And
And that all come from pretty much a change of mindset for you, then, from like
For me, yeah, yeah, certainly. I say I wouldn't have got. I don't think I'd have got to 2005 if I hadn't had that meeting. I know it sounds, a tall story, an exaggeration, but I don't think I would have. And stressed and still stresses the importance of the mental side of the game, but well-being as well. The pressure we put these guys under in that environment. It's a massive amount of expectation and a huge amount of pressure for them to constantly be going through. We've got to look after it. But yeah, it changed for me. Didn't mean I never had problems again. Didn't mean that I never lacked confidence or that I didn't bowl well again, because I did. But it certainly put me in a place where I was looking forward, and planning forward, rather than just poor me, just put me out of my misery and drop me. That's the state I got to. And so by the end of 2004, or our summer in 2004, we won the 7 tests, Champions Trophy in England, lost the final to West Indies, unfortunately. But in the process, in the semi-final, beat Australia comfortably at Edgbaston. Yeah. And again, in terms of turning points, that was just a moment when we felt, we've got the Aussies here, but it felt, you know what, we're building something pretty good here. And who knows? And that, from that summer we went on to the winter in South Africa, or Zimbabwe and South Africa, arrival of Kevin Peterson on the scene, which was brilliant. We'd heard a lot about Kev, not much of it very good, to be honest, but when he came in the environment, he was fantastic. We were training buddies, spent a lot of time together, and just a fantastic player, one of the best players I've ever seen in my life, which he proved down the line. But South Africa, he didn't play in the Test series, but played in the one-dayers. I think he got 300s in his debut series. But in the Test matches, we won 2-1. And again, that was another stepping stone. This team, we built momentum towards 2005. And I guess by the time we got there, again, I don't know whether you ever know whether you're completely ready, but I think we were as ready as we were going to be.
I hope you enjoyed our first part with Ashley discussing his playing career. We're going to do a second part, which is also covering the fantastic 2005 historic Ashes, when obviously England beat Australia. Some great behind-the-scenes content regarding that and the rest of Ashley's career. So hopefully you'll catch that when it comes out in the next few days. Thanks. Bye.